question while I adjust myself. How frequently does Palm Beach County ask for or engage in something like a temporary restriction on gun ownership?
Well, each of the situations are different. I mean, let me tell you how the scenario plays out, all right? Usually if we get a tip, and sometimes it's, in regards to a school problem or somebody that is threatened to do something at a school, but it could be somebody in a neighborhood, it could be a domestic, where we get information that there could be a potentiality for violence at a particular location in regards to the people that are there. So when the original deputy gets there and gets the situation calmed down and we realize that there's no immediate problem, then we will send our behavioral sciences people there, which is a mental health unit. Because a lot of times there's a lot of things involved. It could be some mental health issues, it could be substance abuse issues, it could be the combination thereof. So once they get there and they do assessment of the person, if they believe that that person is a danger to himself or a danger to the community, then they will put them in mental health under the Baker Act. That's when, at that point in time, if we determine that there's weapons in the house or the threat of weapons, then that unit will go get a risk protection order to seize the weapons. Now, the important part of this whole process is there's due process for the person who we're going to take the weapons from. In other words, we just don't walk in there and say, give me all your guns, right? That's the biggest fear of people across the United States. There's a due process here where the person that is actually going to get the firearms removed from them has the ability to have their day in court also before the judge grants that order. Now, you can do an ex parte where the circumstances are such that we have to have those weapons to make sure everybody's safe. So we go in front of the judge, present the facts to him, and then the judge makes the determination if he's going to grant the order. So there's a process in place here to where the people that are involved, their rights are not abridged, and there's a process to legally take the guns.
So you have a specialized unit that specifically can deal with this?
Absolutely.
What kind of
That's
training?
all they do is go for the risk protection orders. But the idea is it's not necessarily about an arrest. Now, if there's some laws being broken, we're certainly going to arrest the people. But if we've intervened ahead of time to where there's mental health issues or substance abuse issues involved, we're going to get the people the help that they need, take them to mental health, get them there for 72 hours, and then when they come out, we're going to help them transition back into their life. If it's a juvenile, we'll work with the parents. If it's an adult, they're living with somebody else, we'll work with them, and then we'll monitor them for a while to make sure that there's not going to be any reoccurrences.
So in the last year and a half plus that this law has been on the books, do you have any kind of numbers of how frequently you've gotten a temporary order and a permanent order?
Well, we're probably up and around between 50 and 60 of them altogether, which is not a high number. In Dayton-Broward, they're up to a couple hundred. But the main thing is after you get the temporary one, you can go for an extended one, right? The first one is probably good for a year. You can reapply after that if the circumstances haven't been resolved or the person isn't stabilized enough to get the firearms back. You go back to the judge again. It's not a decision made on our part, and then reapply for an extension of the risk protection order. So the main thing for the public to understand is, and I understand the concerns about, your neighbor calls and says, I don't like the guy next door, he's acting crazy. It's not an automatic thing. We have professionals. So when I say the mental health unit, these are deputies that are specially trained, but they have a partner that is a clinical person that we've hired from the community. These are mental health professionals that have done this as a career. And that team will go there and make the evaluation. So we don't rely on the third party telling us, oh, this person, is not mentally stable. And let me be clear about this. Everybody that has mental health issues is not dangerous, is not violent. So we don't want to stereotype. But the fact of the matter is, the people that are carrying out these mass attacks, they've got some mental problems. That's why they act like they do. And there could be some substance abuse involved in it also.
There are some that are going to say this is just a panacea for gun control.
Well, if there wasn't a due process involved, I would totally agree with them. Because I as a sheriff, uphold the Constitution and the Second Amendment. I don't think that anybody should be able to go seize somebody else's firearms unrestricted of a due process. I'm against that. And that's why this process that is in Florida, and particularly the one we use, has a due process where the people that are involved in it have the right to avail themselves to a judge. So you just can't walk in and see somebody's guns without a process.
As a-
We've had instances where we've got information that a juvenile that belonged to a particular school was on social media claiming that they were going to commit acts of violence. We've gone there with the deputies, with the mental health people, taken that juvenile into custody to mental health, found out that there was a weapon in the house and taken that weapon. Now, whether they were going to actually do it or not, we don't know that. But the fact of the matter is, we took the means and the tool away from them. Always remember this, okay? Whether it's a car, a gun, a knife, a rock, a shovel, whatever it is, it's not the instrument that's the problem. It's the person that uses the instrument. Look overseas. Overseas, especially in London, they're stabbing the police. They're stabbing other people. They're not using firearms. In several instances, people use cars to drive into large groups of people and run over them. The mentality of taking away the instruments is not necessarily the answer to the problem. I'll give you an example. After the bombing in Boston, there was actually a movement to ban pressure cookers from anybody under 21. Now, how stupid is that, right? It wasn't the pressure cooker that did it. It was the person that used the pressure cooker. So you have to think through this all the way.
But the way you describe that, then it makes it sound like you're trying to plug a hole with a finger.
Exactly right. We have to, the problem lies with the person. Identify the person that is the potential problem and take that person out of the equation, and then take the instruments out of the equation, and then you've got the problem resolved. But you have to identify the person first. That's why we encourage people to call us. That's why we have our app out here of Connect and Protect, where people can anonymously let us know, listen, one of the biggest elements, if you look back at all the mass shootings, somebody knew ahead of time. People posted manifestos, or they were on the internet, or they talked to their neighbors, or some family member knew ahead of time. The person isn't acting right. They've said some really dangerous things. Well, who did you tell? Well, nobody. If we know ahead of time, then we can intervene.
Is the, and it's a terrible thing to have to ask, but is the public truly reliable enough to spot this?
Well, yes and no, right? Some people are afraid to give the information because they're either worried about a retaliation or it's a family member and they don't want to hurt them. That's why we have the ability to get information and the people don't have to identify themselves. But the other piece of the equation that's important is if the family members know that we're not trying to arrest them, we're trying to help them, we're trying to prevent something, we're trying to get them help for substance abuse or mental health, they won't be as reluctant to call us if they realize that we're really there to help them and it's not necessarily about an arrest. So there's many pieces to this puzzle.
Is that why
But-
you're sending doctors?
Pardon me?
Is that why you're sending?
Well, that's why we sent the team
Right.
of a mental health professional and the deputy that's specially trained, right? Because it's not always about arrest. If they've committed a crime, sure. But a lot of time, you're getting them before they commit the crime. And that's why the intervention is there to get them to mental health.
I know there are parameters of what you can and can't talk about legally,
Yeah.
but the president is strongly considering this. Congress is strongly considering it to some varying capacity. Is there a story that you can tell the president, in your own experience as sheriff, of this working?
Well, it's like I gave you the example the first time
Right.
of the juvenile that we had information. He was actually on the internet with a picture of the gun in his hand saying that he was going to go do some things that were at his school that he didn't like.
Palm Beach
able-
County School.
Yeah, in Palm Beach County. So we were able to get to that juvenile, get him the help he need, take that firearm out of the situation. So that prevented something from happening. Now, whether he was going to carry through with it or not, we don't know. But he didn't have the capability to do that. When I testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, that was one of the important things that they were very interested in, is that we had the ability to intervene, that this was a tool. You know, the red flag laws is not the end all to everything. It's one tool that you use after you identify the person that has the potential to be violent.
Do you think using this you've prevented an attack?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Already in a year?
Oh, easily. Now, whether it was going to be a mass shooting or not, who knows, right? Whether it's a family disturbance, I mean, we can use this in anything. If we have a husband and wife problem where there's violence there and we go to that situation and there's firearms involved, we can use this to prevent further violence within a family situation. So there's a lot of different applications here. It's not just for mass shootings, it's not just for school shootings, it's anywhere that the potential is there for that firearm to be used by a person that's unstable.
Do you think police in general currently are working with that level of trust in their communities? And in your community specifically?
I do, and the reason is because we continue to get information from people that says you need to look at this, we don't feel comfortable about this. And one of the things that we do in our Homeland Security Bureau here is we have different factions within the community that we have seminars with. The hotel hospitality group, realtors, security guards, people that have various businesses that come in contact with the community. And we put all these people in a room and explain to them, here's how the see something, say somethings work. Here's why we need to have you be our partner. Think about this. If the people in Las Vegas that were running that hotel would have called the Las Vegas police and said, hey, there's a guy in a room up there and he's had like 30 different things delivered to his room, big suitcases,
Right.
long rifle looking things, and you know, it's kind of strange. If the police would have gone up there, they might have prevented all that stuff in Las Vegas. But nobody called because they didn't have that connection. That's why we do so much outreach with our Homeland Security Bureau to see something, say something. The programs we have is Citizens Against Terrorism, Businesses Against Terrorism. It's a nationally recognized program. The federal government has replicated it because they like it. But it's how you build the trust with the community to say to them, look, call us. It may not be something, but it may be something, right? No one's going to be accusatory. We just want to prevent something from happening.
But isn't that one of your biggest impediments with this? People getting the gumption, the trust in you, the personal fire to call the police in the
Yeah,
first
and I think that the public is starting to get it. They realize that, yeah, they got to be part of the solution. That we don't have a crystal ball sitting around, right? Unless you give us some information. It's any crime prevention efforts like that. It's like if you're a homeowner in a neighborhood and you see a stranger walking up and down the sidewalk, he don't belong in your neighborhood, you need to call us. He might be a potential burglar, right? It's the same concept, but it's about potential violent acts.
Can you really stop one lone individual who is dead set on committing a hate crime in the case of El Paso or a terrorist attack or whatever?
It's hard because you don't want to live in an armed camp environment.
Right.
You don't want every door locked. And outdoor events are harder to protect in other words. Look at the guy that cut through the fence at the rock concert, right? They had a pretty good security system going. The guy cut through the fence. So outside venues are real tough, like parking lots of Walmart. How do you really secure a parking lot? So how are you going to stop anybody from coming up, getting out of a car and doing what they're going to do in the parking lot and working their way into the business? The idea is stop it before it gets to the parking lot. So it goes back to the original premise. Give us the information, try to get the people before they get to the venue they're going to, harden up the venues that you can, you know, if you're having concerts or your schools or your businesses. You know, we go do surveys at businesses, we give people active shooter training, but the whole key to this whole thing is the information ahead of time. That's why your terrorist experts say, you know what, we got all kinds of SWAT teams, we got all kinds of vehicles, we got all kinds of weapons. That's after the fact. You want to get them before it happens. That's why you have the CIA, intelligence on a worldwide level, but we want to know the information before it happens so we can get to the people before they